So I believe we have to invest in violence prevention because our country's recent history has been a violent one. We've had to overcome colonialism. We've had to overcome apartheid. We're dealing with the reconstruction of our country into a country where everybody feels they belong. So the reason why we have to invest is because the country, in a way, requires disentanglement from this violence.
We know that South Africa is going through a really difficult time and that governments are facing shrinking budgets and they have to make really tough choices. And as we gathered here today, we wanted to make a case why it's important to be investing in prevention. Because when we invest in prevention, we need to start seeing our investment in communities as a long-term game that is going to benefit all of us as a country, because the reality and the research is showing us that increasing our investment into the criminal justice system is not resulting in lower levels of violence or in higher levels of trust from communities. So these resources also need to be moving into parenting programs, into supporting extramural activities, into uplifting communities, creating centers and spaces of joy and happiness, and also addressing the deep trauma that we still carry as a country and as a society.
In the Commission, for example, we say our aim is reimagining childhoods. And I would believe that it works towards a violence prevention aim, but it just brings more positive orientation to it.
If we don't recognize structural violence and start addressing structural violence in the programs and the work that we do, we have a very long way to go. We need to have the political will, we need to have the heart to want to address these issues on all levels.
Research is showing you that violence is preventable, therefore that's the very importance why we need to actually place that funding, place that interest, place that emphasis on violence prevention as well, or safety promotion, however direction violence prevention is going to take, even in the language you use to kind of promote it. But I do think it is preventable.
Programs such as parenting programs have the potential to disrupt intergenerational transmissions and cycles of violence. And so if we start thinking more long-term, we are left with the question, what will happen if children grow up in safe, non-violent, cohesive homes and families?
We created this space because we realized that it's important for different sectors that work on issues of violence prevention to come together and share knowledge and share research and evidence on what works to prevent violence, and also discuss key developments in this ecosystem that we work in.
I think for me it was important to attend the Violence Prevention Forum because it is a space that brings together all the stakeholders that are responsible for violence prevention. So we're speaking about the government departments, the researchers that are doing research research on violence and the programs that help to reduce it, the implementers that are working on the ground to actually implement these programs. It's important to be in a space and hear the sharing of information, hear what is going on the ground, so that we can, as government people, go back to our offices, influence the spaces that we're in, and kind of feed back that information.
I think the biggest value of the Violence Prevention Forum is the relationships that we build. I think we talk about the work that we do and then this work that we do, like it's two separate things. But for me, this is the real work that we do. Building relationships, building collaborations. I think this is the real work, because I believe that change doesn't happen with outside of relationships. So that is important, to understand other people, where they're coming from, and to be able for them to understand our work, where we're coming from, and how do we take it forward.
I think what I value mostly about the space is that it's process work. It is not just head space work, it's heart space work. And I think what is important is that we are people first doing this work. And this process, this Violence Prevention Forum, actually acknowledges that we are people in this process. We are building relationships together.
There is a safety in the space to speak about very sensitive topics. So when speaking about a sensitive topic, there needs to be a platform that holds the person speaking about an area. And in violence prevention, everything is sensitive. There's nothing that should be off, no bar should be out of what you speak about. And I think what the value that the space provides is one of safety, for you to be honest about a particular topic you want to speak about. The forum isn't just about an event, it's about actually going away from a space and working together on a real project. And that's what this space is all about, which is why I come back.
Without these sort of spaces where we can connect with each other, it makes it so much harder to be able to voice those things that is important.
I don't think I've seen barely any spaces where these kind of conversations and change-making things happen. And it's critical because actually it works.
For me, it's increasingly becoming a space that materializes my most important tenet around violence prevention, which is that it is actually love. It is the work of love in action. When you have loved me, you have prevented violence. When you have taught me how to love, you've prevented violence. When I have been given the opportunity to love, violence has been prevented. So for me, it is all centered around this notion of how we make love work in our times.
If I want to make this world a better place for my daughter and for my friends and for the people around me, then I need to stop the one thing that is destroying stuff, and that is violence. One of our boys that is being bullied at school, those are destructive environments, and if we need to change that, it has to start with the one simple thing, is that making the environment better.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe that violence is preventable.